Sometimes the media have portrayed me as the angel of the dump, and that's not at all how I see myself. This is a collective effort. I came to the Philippines in '96, and I came on from a sabbatical from work. I really just wanted some time just to reevaluate what I was doing with my life. And I was very impacted when I arrived because it wasn't what I expected. I mean, I had always traveled in the Western world. And in every newspaper that I read, there was always stories of squatter areas being demolished and poor people being moved on to another area. And it just intrigued me at that point as to how a country could be in this condition, and how there were so many poor people and why they were poor. When I was in the taxi and we got on to going towards an area called Tondo, it's then that I saw hundreds of shanties. Really shocking, and it shocked me so much that I asked the taxi driver to stop, and then I got out and I walked the rest of the way. And it was as I was walking that I saw these two young children. It was two young boys, and they had a big hook in their hands, and they were dragging a sack behind them, and they were going up a dirt track, and that area smelt really badly. And I got so curious as to why those boys were dragging those sacks and what they were doing, and I followed them. And when I followed them, they then went into an open dump site, and then it was the most shocking sight that I've ever seen. After a few minutes of standing there, I moved away, and I carried on down the road towards the cemetery with this address that I was given. Eventually I found that cemetery, and I walked down in between the concrete coffins, compartments they call them, where the bodies were buried. And as I got to the end of that stretch, I then saw again the same thing, rows and rows of shanty housing, except this time it was suspended over the sea. And it was as I was standing there looking at that children started to walk up to me. And again, they weren't particularly happy. They weren't smiling children that I was used to. they stood again and they stared at me and I stared at them. And it was probably the most defining moment of my life. I think everything for me at that moment changed. At that minute, I had a very strong sense of deja vu. It brought me back, that feeling of where the area was so hopeless. It brought me back to my childhood, and it took me back to a place where when I was small, I felt very helpless to change my situation. My sister and I were both desperately unhappy when we were kids, and one of the overriding things that we felt was a helplessness in our lives. We were not able to change the situation that we were in. The one thing that saved me was my education, because even though I didn't get to finish my secondary education, I'm probably one of the most uneducated people in Britain. I just didn't get to finish, so I have no qualifications, no papers behind my name. But I was able to read and write, and I was able to do basic arithmetic, and I was able to work. And I knew I could get a job as a waitress, I could clean toilets, I could do anything. I could work, and that's what my education gave me, and it gave me freedom. And for me, that's what both my sister and I want to give these children. We want to give them the freedom to make choices to change their lives. Currently, they have no way of making that choice, and we don't want children to be in that situation because it reminds us of how we are and how we were. I decided to go back to England and raise money just to build a daycare centre for them. I felt that if the children had a safe place to go, that would help give them happy memories. And it was really just a very simple dream in the beginning.